Hey guys, welcome to the Daily Word Bible Study, a plain and simple book by book, chapter by chapter, and verse by verse study through the entire Bible. Now, we are in Ezekiel chapter 40. Now, this is a very interesting chapter because from chapters 40 to chapters 48 is a detailed description of the temple. Now, we kind of have to explore that. And again, when it gets to this, um, here's I'm not as dogmatic as I am on other scriptures, okay? And um because excuse me, when we think about Israel's plight. Now, so we sort of have to start from, let me go back to my image here, that's what I'm looking for. Um the prophecies as they unfold, okay? Now, what do I mean? So you remember, if you go back to the time of Isaiah, so Isaiah and then the other prophets during that time, like Amos, Joel, um, some of the others, okay, they were around the same time of Isaiah, where God begins his prophetic utterances of um, what he's going to do, um, what he's going to do. Is towards Israel, the judgment of Israel. Now, what do I mean by that? And by the way, let me just kind of be clear. And the reason why I'm going this way is because this I'm going to read most of these chapters, read through, okay, and you're going to see why. So it is going to be a little tedious because again, it is a description um, of the temple. The question is, what temple? So, and I'm going to get to that in a moment. Let me, and then say this. So, when we talk about the structure of the writings of the prophet, and we remember when we went through, we studied, we studied Hosea, Joel, Amos, Obadiah, Jonah, Micah, Nahum, Habakkuk, and then Zephaniah. We studied them before we got to Isaiah because they kind of date according to the dating. They kind of predated Isaiah, and then we studied Isaiah. I think, and I'm going to make some correction on that because I think we studied, I think Obadiah. I want to say Nahum. We studied around Isaiah. Now, we didn't study them from the minor as they are arranged, the minor and the major prophets. I wanted to study them in the time frame so that we can get the feel of the prophetic utterance. So during this time, it was the beginning of God prophesying, prophesying to Israel to turn from their wicked ways, to repent, which they wasn't. So then we come to those prophets, and then we come back. We go through. When we come to Isaiah. Okay, then we came to Jeremiah, and now we're in Ezekiel. Well, Lamentations, then Ezekiel. The next it would be Daniel, and then after Daniel, we will study the post exile prophets, which will be Haggai, Zechariah, and Malachi. Okay. Now, again, the reason why we're doing it that way is because, again, I wanted you to see you get the feel of what is going on during that time period, that utterance. Okay. So then from Isaiah, you go from kind of a warning to, in Jeremiah, the actual death of the nation. Now, Jeremiah, Ezekiel, and Daniel are contemporary. They live around the same time. So Ezekiel prophecy. Now, when we get to the book of Daniel, okay, when we get to the book of Daniel, Daniel's prophecy will take upon a more global prophecy. Okay, Ezekiel, Jewish to the core, right? I mean, he's speaking about Israel, the prophecies of Israel. Okay, now, so prophetically, this is how God is making his prophecy. Now, so as we are studying in Ezekiel, um, the prophecies surrounding him, the utterances that he's given, and I got to find my picture that I want you to see. Here we go. So this again, prophetic picture here. What we're getting ready to get into is that we're going to get past this. The prophetic image is going to get past this image where Jesus, the rock, will strike the feet of um, it will strike the feet of this image and destroy this image completely, which is what? Human government. So the head of gold, um, the chest of arms in silver, belly of thighs in bronze, legs of iron, and then the feet of iron and clay. These 5 world dominating kingdoms. Uh, the Babylonian Empire, the Kingdom in Medes Empire, the Grecian Empire, the Roman Empire, and then this world kingdom that is yet to come. During the days of the kingdom, the empire that's of the feet of iron and clay, Jesus will set up his kingdom. The rock that you see there will pulverize the human government completely. So where are we at now as we get into Ezekiel's prophecy? Where we at now um, really is during the millennial reign. You know, Jesus has come. When Jesus comes back, he's going to destroy the wicked armies of the earth. So what is kind of just to me, what is questioning here is what is this? And we're going to get into it now. What is this new temple that he is referring to? And when does this temple exist? What is this temple? Now, so let's kind of go back now to the history of temples, right? The history of temples. So we have Solomon's temple, and I think he built that temple somewhere around the 500-year mark. From the day that they come out of Egypt to he dedicates the temple. Somewhere around 500 years, okay? So that's the first temple. Now, then we have a second temple, okay? We have a second temple that was built post-exile. So between what is called, oftentimes referred to as the silent years, this 500-year where there was no prophetic voice between the Malachi and Matthew, this silent period, okay? The new temple was built about starting, I believe it was AD 165. I would have to do my history. I should have done it, but I didn't. In terms of, well, actually not 165, I'm sorry. Probably around 50 years before Jesus. And I say that because remember in John, when Jesus tells them in John chapter 2 that he was going to, they said, you know, what sign do you show us when he drives out all of the money changers? And they asked him, well, what sign do you show us that this is going to, you know, that you're doing anything? And he said, destroy this temple and I will raise it up in 3 days. And they go, but 46 years this temple has been built and you're going to raise it up in 3 days? So around 50 years, right? And remember, this same temple is the one that Jesus said that would be destroyed in Matthew 24. He said this is going to be leveled, and then that came to pass in AD 70. Okay, So the question becomes now, and we're going to start reading in a moment, but this the um the when it, so let me back up. So remember, this prophecy is given before the second temple. So the question is this referring to the second temple? And I'm going to say it is not. Okay. I'm going to say that it is not, and we'll see why. I'm going to say that this is a third temple that is built during the millennial reign of Jesus. Okay, that's my take on this, because at the end of it, there is no hint that this temple will be destroyed. Now, this also raised a lot of questions, though. Like, as we're going to see, if this temple is built, why is this temple built during that time? Will there be animal offerings, and then what kind of offerings? We'll get into all of that too. So let's just start reading, because it's kind of very interesting. So verse 40 says, in the 25th year of our exile. Now remember, some of the other prophecies was around the 9th year, 10th year, and 11th year, but now in the 25th year of our exile. And remember, a lot of these prophecies really are just prophecies that are strung together over years. Okay, so whoever compiled these prophecies. In other words, when Ezekiel did not sit down and just start speaking 48 chapters. Okay, all right. So verse 1 says, in the 25th year of our exile, at the beginning of the year, on the 10th day of the month of the 14th year after Jerusalem had been captured, on that very day, the Lord's hand was upon me, and he brought me there, right? So this again, now keep this in mind, we've been having prophecies about what God is going to do in terms of the restoration of Israel, okay? Verse 2, in the visions of God, he took me to the land of Israel and set me down on the very high mountain. On its southern slope was a structure resembling a city. Now remember, he's not in Jerusalem, so he's in Babylon. He's living in Babylon. And notice he said too, 14, at this point too, it has been 14 years since he had received news that Israel had been taken, had been destroyed. Verse 3, he brought me there, and I saw a man whose appearance was like bronze, with a linen cord and a measuring rod in his hand. He was standing by the gate. He spoke to me, Son of man, look with your eyes, listen with your ears, and pay attention to everything I'm going to show you. For I have brought you here so that I may show it to you. Report everything you see to the house of Israel. Now, one thing too, before we get there, let me show you something. Okay, get to it. Let me show you something in the book of Revelation. I'm going to start with 11. Okay, look at verse 11. It says right here, then I was given a measuring reed like a rod with these words, go measure God's sanctuary and altar and count those who worship there, but exclude the courtyard outside the sanctuary. Do not measure it, because it is given to the nations, and they will trample the holy city for 42 months, and I will power my two witnesses, and they will prophesy for 1260 days dressed in sackcloth. These are the two olive trees and the two lampstands that stand before the Lord of the earth. If anyone wants to harm them, fire come from their mouth and consume their enemies. If anyone wants to harm them, he must be killed in this way. And I'm going to stop here, because I don't want to get into the two witnesses, but I want you to see, notice he says here to measure the temple. So now here's another question. Then this is just a question: will the temple that we're going to read about in Ezekiel be built even before the millennial reign? And again, I'm not clear about that. But notice he's talking about certainly a witness, a temple here during this period of time, during the tribulation period time, the Great Tribulation. Okay, notice he says um, um, the temple it seemed to be already measured, but then he's and at this point he's going to talk about the 3.5 year point in the 7 year tribulation period. Just a thought, though. All right, so verse 5. Um, Now there was a wall surrounding the outside of the temple. The measuring rod in the man's hand was 6 units of 21 inches. Each unit was the standard length plus 3 inches. He measured the thickness of the wall structure, and it was 10 feet, and its height was the same. Then he came to the gate that faced east and climbed its steps. He measured the threshold of the gate. It was 10 feet deep, and the first threshold was 10 feet deep. Each recesses was about 10 feet long and 10 feet deep, and there was a space of 8.75 feet between the recesses. The inner threshold of the gate on the temple side next to the portico was about 10 feet. Next, he measured the portico of the gate, and it was 14 feet, and the pillars were 3.5 feet. The portico of the gate was on the temple side. Now, by the way, let me just kind of forewarn you. For the next 8 chapters, this is how this is going to go right here. This kind of intense detail here of the temple. Okay. There were 3 recesses on each side of the gate, of each gate, each with the same measurements, and the pilasters on either side also had the same measurements. Then the measurements and the width of the gate's entrance, it was 17.5 feet with the width of the gate. Now, what I'm going to do, I'm going to spare us because again, all of these measurements here, I'm just going to read just some of them because this is basically what you're going to see. Okay, so um, so I'm deciding now, I'm just not going to go through and read every one of this because it's basically the same. Verse 16 says, the recess of the pilasters were beveled windows all around inside the gateway. The porticos also had windows all around inside. Each pilaster was decorated with palm trees. Then he brought me out into the outer court, and there was chambers and a paved surface laid out all around the court. 30 chambers faced the pavement uh, which flanked the gates of the corresponding to the length of the gate. This was the lower pavement. Then he measured the distance from the front to the lower gate to the exterior of the inner court. It was 175 feet. This was the east exit. The next was the north described. And then he's going to describe all of the north in pretty much the same way. And then it says, verse 28, he said, then he brought me to the inner court through the south gate, and when he measured the south gate, it had the same measurements as the others. So we'll skip that. You see all this. Verse 32, then he brought me to the inner court of the east side, and when he measured the gate, it had the same measurement as the others. The recess, again, he gives the details. He brought me to the north gate. When he measured it, it had the same measurement as the others. So we're going to keep on. And then it says, and then there was a chamber whose doors opened into the portico of the gate. The burnt offerings was to be washed there. Now, I'm going to stop here anyway, because here's the question I want to say right here: the burnt offerings. This temple will have offerings performed there. Okay, this temple will have offerings performed there. I just want to kind of put that thought in there. So then it says, um, Outside, as one approached the entrance to the north gate, there were 2 tables, one on the side and 2 more on the other side of the portico. So there were 4 tables inside. Then it said there were 4 tables. Again, the same thing. And then it said the utensils used to slaughter the burnt offerings and the other sacrifices were placed on them. And then it says outside the inner gate, within the inner court, and there were chambers beside the south gate facing the north. And the man said to me, this chamber that faces the south is for the priests who keep the charge of the temple. Now, again, another question. So we're going to have priests and you're going to have offerings here. And then it says the chamber faces the north is the priest who keeps the charge of the altar. These are the sons of Zadok, the ones from the sons of Levite who may approach the Lord to serve him. And then it says, he brought me to the portico of the temple and measured the Palatica. Now I'm going to stop here, and I'm going to come back. As you see, I'm gonna gloss through many of that. There are many questions, however, that's kind of not answered about that. But we will continue this in the next study. All right, guys, don't forget to like and share this video and subscribe to BP the Bible Perspective. And as always, if you have a thought, a comment, add it to the comment section below. All comments are welcome, and I'll see you in the next study.